On the edge of a lonely highway, where tall grass bends beneath restless wind, a mother dog lay bound. A rough rope cut into her legs. A second rope forced her mouth closed so tightly that even whimpers could not escape. She had once known freedom.
Subscribe now if you want more pets to be rescued.
She had once known the warmth of running beneath open skies, but cruelty had replaced sky with restraint, and fear had stolen the strength from her limbs. The sun burned overhead. The dust clung to her fur. Time moved, but she could not. Her body could no longer fight. Her breathing slowed. And finally, darkness closed in. Beside her, life still flickered. A single puppy, small enough to fit into two cupped hands, stayed close to her side. He did not understand the meaning of ropes. He did not understand why his mother would not rise, why the warm milk no longer came, why the heartbeat that had always anchored his world suddenly faded into silence. He nudged her again and again, pressing his nose into her shoulder, pawing clumsily at her unmoving body. He cried, not loudly, but with a helpless, trembling sound only loneliness can produce. The sky stretched vast and uncaring above him. No one came. Eventually, hunger spoke, louder than fear. It was a quiet voice at first, then sharp and demanding, twisting inside his small belly, pushing him forward one uncertain step at a time. He looked back at her one last time, as if promising to return, and then turned toward the road, guided only by instinct and desperation. He began to walk. The road was long and the world was large. His paws were not made for hot pavement or sharp stones. Yet he continued, ears flattening each time a car roared past him like a storm. He flinched at shadows and sounds he could not name. But the strongest force inside him was not fear. It was a memory of his mother, lying still and alone. Every step forward was a step he hoped would let him come back with strength, with help, with something to save her. The town rose in the distance, a patchwork of noise, color, and human lives colliding in constant motion. To the people there, it was an ordinary day. To him, it was an entire universe of unknown possibilities. He crossed into the city like a ghost no one noticed. People walked quickly, eyes fixed on screens, conversation schedules, and worries of her own. Shoes passed dangerously close to his tail. Bags brushed his back. Children pointed for a moment, then forgot him. He searched each face with silent hope, tail moving in tiny, unsure motions. But attention slid past him as though he were simply another fallen leaf blown across the pavement. He was hungry. He was tired.
Poor little guy.
He was invisible. Then the smell reached him. It drifted from an open doorway, rich and heavy. Fresh meat, bone, the thick scent of sustenance. A butcher shop. The smell wrapped around him like a promise, and his legs, weak with hunger, carried him forward before thought could catch up. He slipped inside, small claws tapping softly against the floor. But survival met hostility. The butcher saw him and anger sparked, not because of who the puppy was, but because of what life had hardened the man into. A shout filled the air, a hand raised, a boot scraped the floor and drove toward him. The puppy's heart pounded as he turned and ran, chased back into the street by voices that were louder than compassion. The door slammed shut behind him, the smell of meat replaced by the stale scent of asphalt and exhaust. He stopped only when his shaking legs forced him to. For a moment, he nearly gave up. He lowered his head, body shrinking into the smallest form possible, as though trying to disappear into the cracks of the world. But the memory of his mother still lying back on that deserted road called him through fear, through exhaustion, through hunger. He stood again and continued. In the city square, he found people sitting on benches, talking beneath the shade of old trees. He approached slowly this time, unsure and timid, like a shadow approaching light.
Okay.
His eyes were wide, glossy with fatigue and confusion. This time, no yelling, no boots, no closed doors. A woman noticed him first. Her gaze softened. She nudged a man beside her and pointed. For a moment, they only looked at the tiny ribs visible beneath fur, at the hesitation in his movements, at the quiet way he simply stood before them, asking for nothing but presence. The man sighed and opened a small bag of food. He pulled out a single sausage and lowered it toward the puppy. The little dog stepped forward cautiously, then quickly took the offering. chewing with fierce gratitude as though each bite anchored him back into life. For the couple, it was a small gesture. For him, it was strength. It was proof the world still held pockets of warmth. He ate, and memory flooded back stronger than hunger. He turned and ran. This time his run was not wandering. It had direction, urgency, purpose. He weaved between bicycles, dashed past storefronts, crossed streets where tires screeched and horns blared. He was frightened, but he did not stop. Somewhere else in town, a police officer drove without siren or rush, simply observing another ordinary day. He had seen his share of hardship, people hurting people hurting themselves, but something in him had never hardened. He still noticed small things, and on that day, he noticed a puppy, a tiny figure sprinting through busy traffic, not wild or aimless but driven. The officer watched as the dog stopped, looked back, then continued at full speed. Something wasn't right. This wasn't play. This was urgency. He turned the wheel and followed, careful not to frighten the animal further. The car rolled slowly, guided by the frantic path ahead. The city fell behind. Fields returned. Silence replaced noise. Dust rose around small paw prints. At last, the puppy stopped. He ran toward the fallen mother.
Hang on, girl.
And only then did the officer see the full tragedy. The bound legs, the tied muzzle, the stillness of her body, lying helpless in the dirt where someone had left her like discarded garbage. The officer felt something shift in his chest, the kind of feeling that moves deeper than duty, deeper than law. It was human. It was simple. It was no more. He approached carefully. The puppy circled his mother, whining desperately, touching her face with his nose as if to beg her to move, to breathe, to come back. The officer knelt beside them both. He cut the ropes with steady hands. He removed the cruel binding from her mouth,
Almost there,
revealing
girl.
fur worn raw
Almost
beneath
there.
it. She did not wake, not yet, but there was breath, faint and fragile. That was enough. He lifted her gently into his arms. The puppy followed, eyes wide, body trembling with fear and hope colliding into one powerful feeling. He would not leave her. He would not let her disappear into the world again. He climbed into the car as close as he could get, refusing distance. They sped toward help. At the clinic, hands moved quickly, soft hands, careful hands. Needles, water, blankets, warm lights. The smell of medicine filled the air. Her pulse strengthened slowly, responding to care like a flower to rain after drought. The puppy waded through it all, scratching gently at the door, letting out small cries when he heard unfamiliar sounds. The officer stayed beside him through every minute. Hours stretched long. Then movement. The mother's eyes opened, tired but alive. A small sound left her throat. The first free sound after so much forced silence. When the puppy was allowed to join her, he rushed forward instantly, pressing his tiny body against hers, as though trying to hold her soul in place, so it could not drift away again. She nuzzled him weakly, and something unbreakable passed between them. We are still here. The world had not taken them, but survival was only the beginning. The officer looked at them, not briefly, not indifferently, but with full, conscious choice. Paperwork was signed. Arrangements were made. What began as a rescue became something far deeper. When the clinic doors opened again, evening had fallen, and snow traced delicate patterns across the earth. 2 dogs left that building not as strays, but as family. The police car's back seat became a cradle of safety. The city lights glowed like constellations reflected on wet pavement. The officer spoke softly as he drove, not expecting them to understand his words, but speaking anyway, because care has its own language. They arrived at his home on Christmas Eve. Inside, warmth glowed in gentle light. A tree stood in the corner, decorated not with extravagance but with sincerity. Small ornaments, soft colors, memories collected across years. The fireplace whispered soft crackles. For the first time in their lives, the dogs crossed the threshold not as intruders, not as burdens, but as welcome beings. Clean water waited. Fresh food, a soft bed laid near the hearth. The mother lowered herself slowly, exhaustion finally giving way to rest. The puppy curled tightly against her side, as he always had. Only now there was no rope, no hunger, no fear pressing into their bones. There was quiet. There was safety. There was a steady rhythm of breathing unbroken by violence. The officer sat nearby, watching his flames reflected in canine eyes, now closing in peace rather than despair. He didn't think of himself as a hero.
She's gonna
He
make
simply
it.
believed in something very old, very simple. That kindness matters. That life matters. That choosing to act can rewrite the end of another being's story. Outside, snow fell softly across the world like a gentle forgiveness. Inside, 3 souls, once strangers, became something that words have always struggled to define. Not ownership, not charity. Family, because family is not created by blood. It is created by love, by presence, by the decision to stand between vulnerability and harm. The scars on the mother's muzzle would fade with time. The fear in the puppy's eyes would be replaced by trust. Their past could not be erased, but it no longer defined them. This is not just a story of rescue. It is a story about resilience in the face of cruelty, about the persistence of hope even in the smallest heart, about how the world can change drastically not through grand gestures, but through a single person deciding that suffering will not continue in front of them. And somewhere, beneath the falling snow of that Christmas night, under the glow of warm light in a modest home, a promise was written quietly into the fabric of their lives. You are safe now. You are loved. You are home.
Come on in. Come on in. You're home. The first gift.